Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Today is going to be quite the challenge. I'm going to attempt to perform a makeover with this Matchbox number 2A dumper from 1953. And as you can see, it is quite a sorry state. There should be a man sitting in it driving it, but I think he was ejected when it exploded into two pieces. It is absolutely covered in rust. The paint is abysmal. There's muck on it, and it's going to need a major repair, like a cut and shunt type thing. So this is one of the very basic early models, number 2A. The 1A, if you remember, was the road roller. Well, this is the 2A. They both came out in 1953. So how did this come into my possession? Well, I'm going to let you know. What happened was I went out to check the mailbox on this beautiful hot summer's day, and I found a sandwich bag with a rusty object in it. And with it was a little note. Anyway, it turns out it was dropped off by my local postie called Brenda. She knows that I do up Matchbox cars because she's always delivering spare parts for me. And I think we've discussed it more than once. So on the letter it said, "Not sure if this can be fixed or if it is of any use to you, but here it is. Found it buried in our garden. Brenda." So she must have been digging over a veggie patch. I haven't caught up with her since, so don't know the full backstory. So first look, not too impressed. Look at this axle. It is completely rusted. Now the fact of the matter is that because this was built in 1953, we can assume it was sold within the first couple of years of its existence. So it's been around 70 years or more. Probably for the last 50 years it's been buried in Brenda's vegetable patch, I'm thinking, looking at the condition. So heavily pitted and corroded, I actually have no idea as to whether or not I'm going to get this one worthy of display. Unusually the front axle is free to spin, but instead the actual wheels are jammed on there with years of corrosion. So I think I'm going to have to leave those on there, just thinking aloud as I'm checking it out. Here's the Matchbox encyclopedia. I thought I'd just check it out, and there's actually two versions of this model. One's slightly smaller than the other, and the one I've got has got the green wheels and it has to have a gold grille and bumper bar painted on it. They also came with a little tan coloured driver, so I'm going to have to source one of those. And as you can see, the driver in the later model is completely different to the one of this model here, whereby it's a very thin, narrow, human-like figure. So now I've got the front end around the right way, I can see how it's supposed to fit together. Might have to try and muggy weld that. I'm looking at the colour of the paint, and I just thought I'd brush the dirt off with a cotton bud, and the paint came off with the dirt. So desperate times call for desperate measures. So I thought, first up, for something different, I'm going to chuck this in the Ultrasonic cleaner and see what it comes out like. Now I haven't got any cleaning solution, so I found this recipe online. I'm going to make up my own and hopefully have plenty to put into stock so that if I need it in the future, I've got it on hand. It's basically white vinegar, baking powder and a bit of detergent, and some, it recommends demineralized water, but I just use bottled water. I'm sure it will help. The addition of the baking powder is supposed to add a little bit of sort of particles in the fluid that abrade, corrosion, and increase the cleaning ability of the solution, along with the detergent and the vinegar. Now this whole bottle filled up the whole machine, so I'll have to make another batch to put into stock. I won't do that just now. I've got this thing to concentrate on at the moment. I'll chuck it in the bath and switch the ultrasonic cleaner on. I set the temperature of the water to 30, but it's quite warm today. It starts off at 21, soon gets up to 29. After about 5 minutes, switches off, and I'm excited to see if anything's happened. I was rather hoping that those rusted axles might have come free so I could remove them easily. Rinsing it off in the sink there doesn't really look that much better. I mean, most of the dirt's gone, but all the problems are still there. Now the dirt's gone, you can see exactly how much corrosion there is on that axle. That's going to have to be cut off and replaced. It's one of the worst ones I've ever seen. This front one is not too bad considering. Now notice there's green paint on the axle. This particular model, when it came out from the Matchbox factory, the wheels and the axles were painted green in situ, attached to that front green part, which I find unusual. Obviously they've improved manufacturing since then, but at the time it was probably the quickest way of getting the job done. I'm just chiseling away at that rust, and it's quite crumbly, and after about 5 minutes or so I can sort of see what the axle should look like without all that corrosion clinging to it. I'm trying to free it up, but it's not happening. So I thought, well, I'm not in any rush. I'll try some of this WD-40. It does actually say on the can, loosens rusted parts, which I take with a grain of salt. Anyway, I fill up this little sauce cup with the WD-40 and leave these parts overnight. So it's had that ultrasonic cleaner. Now it's getting soaked in water dispersant and rust remover, allegedly. And we shall come back tomorrow morning and see if anything has happened. Hey, guess what? Just had some really exciting news. I've seen it on the television this morning at breakfast time. Apparently one of these has been seen in Victoria in this area. It's called the Banksia Jewel, and it hasn't been seen since the first fleet landed in 1788. So bird watchers around the world are buzzing about this, and they've offered $10,000 to the first person to get a photograph of it. So, seeing as I know they're in the area, I've got some parrot seed, and I'm hoping to bait one of these Banksia jewels and get a photo of it and win $10,000, which would be great. So I'll just load this up here. And fingers crossed, I'm going to make some money. Well, next morning, these have been in over 12 hours. Take them out. Not much debris left in the liquid. There's a couple of little bits of rust there, but nothing much. Now, I'm optimistic. Let's get them out, dry them off, and see whether anything's come free. Well, those green ones were always pretty free anyway. But now they're super duper free. Unfortunately, they still don't turn on the axle. So I'm going to leave them be for the time being. It's this front one I'm concentrating on. And initially I think they don't turn, but I keep working away at them and eventually they do. So now that I notice that the tipper bucket is attached with its own little axle, and it's actually like a little nail, literally a little bullet-headed nail with a sharp tip on the end of it. The interesting thing is that once it's fitted and the wheels are on, it won't come out. So if you need to remove it, you've got to, in my mind, you've got to remove the wheels to get that little pin out. I've done the ultrasonic cleaner, the soaking overnight in the solution, and now I'm trying to paint strip. I'm trying to get it down to the nitty gritty so I can appreciate what's going on, where it's locked up, what needs to be done. So I'm basically taking it all back to the metal now. Now I think every step is one step closer to where I want to be, but it's a long journey. I've also got to source a little man that goes in that seat, the hole on the seat. That's something else I'm going to have to find. There's a lot of little tiny nooks and crannies on this model. It's a very small model too. Look at the size of my fingers in compared to the model. It's very small, very compact, and the bristles of the brush I used after the paint stripping didn't get into a lot of voids, so that's why I'm using the toothpick. This looks even worse than I thought. It's heavily corroded and pitted, slightly damaged. One of these hinge points for the bucket has rotted out, which I'm using to my advantage. I'm hoping I can get it off without having to take the wheels off. You can just see that nail, a rusty nail in there that's holding it in. It's just the very tip of the point preventing it from coming out. So I think I'll just get a tiny little file in there and flatten that off a little bit, and then I can pull this thing apart. Because it's a point, it's a very small surface area, and I only have to run this little modelling abrasive board really through there a couple of times, and it gives me enough clearance to wiggle the bucket off of the front axle. There we go. Okay, now looking at that, what to do with that? Is it possible to get that axle out and those wheels out without breaking anything? Another thing too, I don't have any spare wheels of this type anywhere in stock. I've looked, so I was thinking of just smashing them off and replacing them with new, but I don't have any. Try as I might, I searched through all of my bins and there is nothing similar. Nothing like it whatsoever. The end of the axle on this model is crimped. It's a domed headed end on one end and the other end is crimped. So I'm trying now to just squash the crimp up into a small barrel, like a original axle thickness. And very slowly I'm trying to literally screw off the wheel off that axle now that the flat end is gone. To get the other one out, very, very solid in there, I thought I'll give it a few whumps with a hammer. This has never failed me. But today it did. It didn't move one iota. So not too chuffed about that. I'm going to get that nail out whilst I'm here. It looks like it's out of the back of a picture frame or something. Maybe Matchbox took over a picture framing factory when they were in development, and they found a box of little tacks on the shelf and they thought we'll use them. Anyway, what I do here, I just take my time and very slowly and patiently keep working away on that wheel, freeing it up a little bit at a time until I can turn it and hopefully get the axle out. This is the first time this wheel's turned in 50 years. I think it's enjoying it. See, that's actually broken in the middle. I thought the wheel was turning, but it's the actual axle. So it's not the wheel turning, it's the actual axle broken. So I end up pulling it out with brute force, and unfortunately I broke off the end of the axle assembly where the axle goes through the hole. So that's another thing I've got to fix. I'm hoping if I can cut it off, I can punch it out or drill it out. Anything is an option at this point in time. So there's the wheel, but the axle's still jammed in there. Nothing to grab hold of to pull it out. So to begin with, I had 2 broken bits. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 broken bits. So sort of I'm going backwards, which is not a good feeling. So this is the axle mount for the main axle, and it's broken off. So I am trying to get out the stub of axle that's in there. I can't pull it out, so I decide I'm going to drill it out with a suitably sized drill. Very difficult to get it in the right spot and to go straight through without making things worse. So I use those little broken icicle sticks there as vice clamps, so I didn't squash this a little bit up. I'm now going to try and weld the axle support that broke off back onto the axle assembly. To do that, I'm going to be using some muggy weld. So I've got my helping hands today. Those little claws, you can see they've had plenty of work. They're all covered in solder and heat damaged. So I just try and run a little bit of muggy weld in there just to make a bond between the 2 parts. I'm optimistic. Unfortunately, I thought I'd done a good job there, but when I go to remove it from the helping hands, it turns out that I've actually welded the helping hands to the bit and not the bit to the axle assembly. So I have to do all that again, give it a big clean up, and the second time is successful. There you can see the axle attachment point is actually welded. Now I'm just going to join the 2 parts of the base together. Once the flux starts to turn brown, it's at the right temperature just to touch the muggy weld down and it should flow freely. That seemed to work. It looks a little bit messy from here, but when it's cooled down, I'll inspect it and clean it up and see if it will hold. They get very hot, those parts, in such a short time. Okay. Alright. I'm happy with that. That's a win. That will clean up a treat, and the top view looks great. Looks like it's never been broken. The only problem is I've got a second part now to weld on, and it fell on the floor. And you think I could find it. That part, we searched for it for at least 20 minutes before giving up. It had literally just vanished. It fell at my feet and vanished.
What have you been filming?
So I can't be repairing the other side now, which is annoying. So instead, I'm going to have to 3D print one. Not something I wanted to do. So all these tools you see here, everything on the table has been used to get to the point where I am, where the only thing I've done is join the two parts together. I've got to make another one of those tipper bin pivot points. So I've got an old garbage truck which I pulled apart, and I cut this piece off from the underside and shaped it to try to fit onto the bin, underside of the bin, to replace the broken one. Very small, very difficult for me with my fat thumbs to handle. You can see where I'm going with this. It's not actually there, it's on the other side, but you know what I mean. I'm doing it there to see if it looks right. Looks not bad. I have to very carefully grind away the broken bit that's left behind on the underside of the bucket. I can't go too far, because if you go too far, it's very difficult to sort of build it back up again. I'm just going very slowly, test fitting each time, bit at a time. Right. In my mind, I'm thinking, I can do this. I can do this. Muggy weld again. It's good stuff. If you haven't got any, I recommend you get some. So a different idea again. I've got those hemostat self-locking pliers holding a tap, small tap that I've screwed, gently screwed into the hole, just to hold it into position. And then I've offered the other part up to it, and again, putting on the solder, leaving a tiny little gap for the flux to flow into, and then immediately followed by heating it up and flowing the muggy weld into it. Well, I don't know what planet I was on today. Maybe I dropped my glasses on the floor. But I don't remember this at all. I think I erased it from my memory at the time. The whole thing I just made melted. And resulted in me having to do it again. So I made another one. And the other one was soldered on crooked. And so I had to heat it up again. And there you can see I just straightened it out. So finally I got there. Well, it wasn't easy. It was half a day. And I'm thinking, oh, I wish that postie hadn't dumped this in me letterbox. I'll have to have words with her when I see her. Anyway, I cleaned it up, and it looks pretty damn good. Even though I do say so myself. These are the wheels that I cut off. They've still got the axle stub stuck in there. So I'm filing it flat, so it looks like it's an original wheel with just a barrel protruding from the hub. And I've got to use this drill I'm holding to drill out the hole to put a new axle pin in there. Very difficult to get it centralized because it's a steel pin and it's a small target, and the drill continuously wants to wander and make its own hole. I'm trying to coax it into position. It's not easy. I was hoping that the actual axle would have come out, disintegrated and fell out, but it actually went in a little bit crooked. I ended up with an oversized oval hole, which I'm going to have to fix. But still, at least there's no axle jammed in there. And like I said, I don't have any spares of these wheels. So I'm going to fill the hole up with some JB Weld, which is supposed to be as strong as metal. Some people say it is, I'm not too sure. And I've stuck it there on a bit of sellotape to stop it oozing out and falling through. I'll leave that overnight to cure. Meanwhile, on to the 3D printing of a spare axle bracket or brace. Very, very small. Only took like 10 minutes to print these, 6 of them. Unfortunately, my plan was flawed because I printed them with the hole down and it got filled with resin during the printing process, which is a bit annoying. There's still a dimple, however, to use as a guide so I can drill out the hole that was in the original plan. Anyway, this is ultraviolet stabilized resin, so you have to expose it to ultraviolet light before you can machine it or use it, because it can be a bit soft if you don't. These are as hard as steel now. They seem pretty rigid, very hard resin. And this is exactly what I was looking for. It's exactly the plan I drew up. I measured it with the micrometer, the bit that come off and I lost. Or rather, I measured the other bit on the other side because I couldn't measure the bit I lost. And it's almost perfect. I just have to drill a hole in it. As I said, they should have been formed when it was built, but it was in the wrong orientation. And I just have to sand it down a tiny little bit on 3 sides to make it fit into the hole where the original bit belongs. Here's the wheels with the JB Weld in. I'll try drilling that out now. Same diameter drill as the axle, obviously. Sits in that chuck a bit wonky though, I'm not too chuffed about that. Okay. I'm thinking, yeah, a bit of a sand, bit of a paint. Probably look alright. See how we go. Now, I don't want to, well, I can't weld this resin piece onto the metal. So I have no option but to glue it on, so I'm going to use the old baking soda and super glue method. If you don't know, you've probably been living under a rock, but for those of you who don't know, the super glue used in conjunction with baking soda, not baking powder, because that's got some other additives in it, but baking soda is, it's like mixing up your own little concrete blend. A load of fines and a few coarse granules, and together with the super glue it makes a super strong material to bond things together. So that's on there pretty solid. It lines up not too bad. Could do with a tweak possibly, we'll see later. So time to put on some primer on all these parts, and this to me is a turning point where I start to see light at the end of the tunnel. You can see all the bits have been repaired and ready for painting. No rust, no oil or grease on them, just a nice thin coat of light grey paint. And to me this is very satisfying, and I just love reaching this point because I can sort of take my foot off the accelerator a little bit and start slowing things down because I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Now here's a little man I bought from Recover Toy in New Zealand. It's a great little thing, very flat, and I did think, oh god, he looks flat, but I mean in the real thing he's flat anyway. So quite a good reproduction little driver there, very similar to the original, which is ordinary as the original one is. I did have a little bit of flashing to get rid of, and These are the colours I'm going to be using. They are the same colours as this. This is the number, we're working on the number 2A, and the number 2C was this Muir Hill dumper truck. So it was built, I think this one was built in 1960, somewhere like that, but they used the same colour paints, which is good. That gives me clues to what paint I'm going to be using to do this. The little driver's painted tan as well. I set him aside because he was like a tan colour on the original. There's tiny little pitting on this model, and I use a tiny bit of filler, Tamiya filler, to go around and fill in any little major dents that I can see. Dints or dents. I think a dent is a small dent in my world. And it's green for go, or red in this case. So I'm using the Tamiya red straight out of the pot, and I'm using a Mr. Hobby bright green. And it's like a couple of shades brighter, but I felt I could have made it exact, possibly, like the original. But I wanted to try and... This model is very boring, and like most of them are. And you need to sort of make it eye-catching. So I gave it a lovely bright green. So it actually looks sort of newer than if I'd done it in an original sort of shade or two darker. I'm very happy with the colour. This guy, when I go to put him in, I noticed the peg on his bottom is a little bit smaller than the hole on the machine. So I'm going to glue him in there with just a dab of araldite, and no one will know. So he can sit there now forever, until next time he's dug up in somebody else's garden. And I've cleaned up the rust off of the dumper pin and gave it a little bit of silver paint just to try and make it look extra special. This here is a pot rivet shank I'm using to replace the front axle that was rusted out. So I've put both of the domed heads on the same side of the model. I think it looks better presented like that, where you've got two heads on one side and two flattened ends on the other. So I've just marked that with a light crimp, pulled it out, cut it off to length. Now I'm going to crush the end over, flatten it with these vice grips. Hopefully, I'm going to have to get a better system than this, because it doesn't always work depending on the metal in the shank of the axle, whatever it is you're going to be using. Sometimes they squash easy. This one didn't, so I guess maybe it wouldn't be stainless steel, would it? It didn't really do anything. So I have to use these pliers in conjunction with the other pliers, and eventually I crush it flat. See, that didn't do it either. I mean, it did a little bit, but not enough to my satisfaction. So I end up doing it 3 times. It always extends out too far, which is good because it means you don't damage the wheel when you're doing it. And then I usually grind the end off like that just to make it look like original sort of length. Now this model, to my surprise, had a bit of bling. It had gold painted grille and front bumper bar. So I'm doing that now. Here's a reminder of what we started with. What a challenge. I looked at this and thought, should I just go and bury it in the backyard? Maybe that's what happened the first time somebody went to do it up. But I thought, no, this should make for a good challenge and a good video, and I hope you enjoy watching it. And if you do, please leave a comment. And this is what it looks like now. Now, I will be the first to admit that it is not perfect, but please cut me some slack here. What I was working with was virtually destroyed piece of metal, a destroyed model, with many, many years of wear and tear on it. And I couldn't for the life of me get that bucket exactly horizontal, which annoys the hell out of me. as you can imagine. But nonetheless, it will look good on the shelf amongst the other models, and it's one that I don't have. So here it is at the yard, moving some gravel around in the yard there in conjunction with the Muir Hill dumper truck. And as usual, they move a couple of bucket loads and then they go for smoko. It's still there. Hang on. Oh, looks exactly the same. It is. It's the exact same one. Oh, Kev, if we can get a photo of this, we're going to make 10 grand, mate. 10 grand. I can't believe it's in our garden. Come on, we've got to get our phones. I told you to put on silent. Ah, for Kevin! So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers, and if you have, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to recommend to your friends. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.